my name is Carly McAvoy and today's lesson is place value. You should try to follow along with the lesson, take notes to practice that, and then after you finish that you should print off from the Angel website, you should print off the worksheet for lesson 1 called Place Value Practice Sheet, and then see if you can work the assignment on your own after having watched the videos using your notes. Then when you go into class, you should get the worksheet for the in-class and work that in class with the instructor without referring back to your notes and see if you can get it by that way. So you have 2 chances to practice after you've watched the video. Let's say that I have a number like this, a big number. Each of the digits, this is all together called a number, but each of these numbers by themselves are called digits. So they're each a digit. This happens to be a 7-digit number because it's got 7 digits all the way across. And each of those digits has a place value. And it goes like this. At the very end, the first one is the ones value, followed by the tens. And you will need to know these terms, so you want to memorize these if you haven't done it already. Hundreds, and the ones and the tens and the hundreds make up what we call a period. We put commas between the periods. This is the ones, period. And then we separate it by a comma, and now we're on to the next period. And the next set of numbers are called thousands, ten thousands, hundred thousands, and make a little space for myself up here. And you can see that I am coming across, I ran out of a little space there, but that's a D, it's kind of hard to read. Hundred thousands, and then I have now come to the next comma, which means I'm in a new period, which is thousands period. And then we go into the millions. The millions, there's also 10 millions and 100 millions. Let's see if I can fix this H a little bit to look like an H. 10 millions, 100 millions, then we go into the billions. This would be the millions period. When you're watching these videos, there's a button at the bottom that can control the speed. So if you'd like to see it a little faster, I have to go slow enough to write. You may want to go at that pace. If you want to go a little faster, you can click the arrow to the right and it'll change it to like 1.25 speed or 1.5 times speed, and then I'll start talking really fast. And you can always slow it down again if you want. Or you can just fast forward to a part that you need to look at. And remember, you can rewind to a part if you want to watch something again. So these are all terminology for the place value of numbers. Ones period, thousands period, millions period. So when you read this number, you read the period and then you say what period you're finished with. So we would read this and say 5, million, because that was 5 in the millions period, 347,000, because that 347 was in the thousands period, and then 168. We don't say ones. So let me read that again for you. 5,347,168. What I don't put in there is the word and. 5,347,168. I don't include the word and, because when you say and in a number, that suggests a decimal point, and we don't have any decimal points in here. So it's really common people say 150, but that's really incorrect. It would be 150 without the word and in there. So what you're going to have to be able to do for your place value is to know what number is in what place value. So for instance, remember, you can always back these videos up or go forward if you want to find something in here that you don't remember it. What you want to try to do while you're watching these videos is to get practice at taking notes, because eventually you'll be in a classroom with an instructor who's going at a certain pace, and you've got to keep up, and you've got to learn how to listen and write and move on. So it's a good time to practice. This time you get to pause if you need to. So you might have a number like 74,692. And maybe they will ask you to tell what place the 6 is in that number. So if you're looking at the 6 in this number, well, it's in that first period, well, it's in the ones period. What is it? It's hundreds. So the 6 is in the hundreds place. Which means if we were to look at the real value of that 6, it would look like this. 600. What about the 9 in that problem? What's the value of this 9? Well, it's in the tens place. So if I have 9 tens, that means I have 90 value for that. And the 2, well, that's in the ones place. And so it just has a value of what we see, which is 2. 692 is how we would read that. The 6 has a value of 600, the 9 has a value of 90, and the 2 has a value of 2. What about the 4? Well, the 4 has a value. What place value is it? What place is it in? It's in the thousands. So the thousands place is 4,000. And finally, what about the 7? What place is the 7 in that number? Well, the 7 is in the 10,000s. And so the 10,000s means that I have 7 of those, so I would have 70,000. 70,000 plus 4,000 plus 600 plus 90 plus 2 gives us 74,692. These are different ways to write this number. This is called standard notation. Standard notation is the way we usually look at numbers. 74,692 written in standard formation looks like this. That's standard notation. What we have down here, when we write it out, looking at each number and its values separately, that's called expanded notation. And expanded notation is this. That would be expanded notation. The third thing we can do with that number is to write it in words, which I've already said it, but I'm going to say it again. 74. When I write 74, I write a hyphen in between it. Those two numbers are connected by a hyphen. 74, and then I state the period, which is thousands. 74,692. 92 is another word that I would hyphenate. When I write that out in words like I just did, that's called written notation. And that's called sloppy. It's harder to write with these smart boards than you think. So give me a little break on the sloppiness. Written notation. Written notation is this. You need to know those three things. Sometimes on your homework it will say write in standard notation. Sometimes it will say write in expanded notation, and sometimes it will say written notation. So when I'm asking for those three different things, you need to know what I'm talking about. So write down an example of the three types that we see right there, just like I did, and then you'll be ready to answer the questions as they come up. So let me give you a problem. I'm going to ask you to write this number in written notation first, and then expanded notation. And I'm going to give it to you in standard notation. So, thought there was a little bit left up there. Okay, so I'm giving it to you in standard. And I'm asking you to change it into written. And expand it. So I will give you this number. I'm not going to say it because I want you to write it, and it's easier if you've heard it. So I'm going to just write the number up here and just say the digits as I go. That digit is 7, 3, 8, 0, 1, 9. So what I would like you to do is write that in written form and then expanded form. Pause the video if you want to practice this, which is what you should be doing. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and watch me do it, but you get more out of it if you're doing it on your own. In written formation, I'm going to read it from left to right. I'm going to say what period I'm in at the end of each period. I have 738. I don't know what that was. 38, I'm hyphenating. Whoops, that's 738. What period is that? That's the thousands. Then the comma. Just like you write it, you put commas in the same way you do when you're writing in standard form. And then all I have left after 738,000, which is what I already said, what I have left is just 19. I don't need to say ones period after that. 738,000. I'm sorry, it really shouldn't have an S. It should just say thousand. 738,019. And now I'm going to write that in expanded form. And again, if you haven't done that yet, stop it and try it on your own. But here's what it looks like. What I have in expanded form, I have a 7 in the hundred thousands place. So that means I have 700,000. When I'm writing in an expanded form, I put a plus sign between each number because it's all added together to make one big number. Then I have 30,000. I have 3 in the 10,000, so I have 3 10,000s, which is 30,000. Then I have 8 in the thousands place. 8 thousands is 8,000. And I don't have any hundreds, so I don't need to put that at all. For the 1, I have 1 in the tens place, so that's value of 10. And the ones, I have a 9, so that's what I have, 738,019. I shouldn't say 19. 19 is the last bit of that. What I want to show you is that as you're going over more and more places, when you're at 1, 2, 3, the 4th digit in expanded notation has 4 digits in it because it's got the 8 plus the 3 following it. The 5th digit has 5 digits when you're writing in expanded notation. The 6th digit has 6 digits and so forth. And that's always how it's going to be. Our first digit has 1, our second has 2, our third, if we had 1, would have 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. So that helps you kind of figure out how many zeros you're putting on there. Be prepared on your homework to do standard form from written form from standard form, expanded form from either one of those forms, and be able to know the difference between those 3 forms. Okay, and then we want to talk a little bit about numbers. It's kind of fun. The history of numbers is pretty interesting. And sometimes you save all the math history till you get to college level classes. And to me, that's the interesting part. So why do we even have numbers? Why is math out there? I know people that don't like math. They're like, whoever invented this. Well, whoever invented it obviously saved the world a lot of problems, because we had a lot of issues without being able to solve math. And look around you, almost anything you find in the room around you or on you was created with the use of math. So it's really a vital part of everything that we do. But back in the day, back in ancient Egypt, people had, let's say, sheep. And they wondered, well, how many sheep do I have? And, well, maybe it didn't matter to them exactly how many they had, but what they wanted to know the next day when they woke up was, did a wolf get one of my sheep, or did somebody steal a sheep, or do I have sheep that are being born? And how do you keep track of that without numbers? And that's really what created the need for numbers. It's people wanting to count things. How many servants do I have? How many bowls of soup can I serve? Whatever. And so those numbers that we count with were the original numbers, and those are called the natural numbers. A good definition for natural numbers are just the counting numbers, the numbers that we count with. Natural numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And when we do so on, just like in English, in math we do the ellipsis, which is the dot, dot, dot. Just means it keeps going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to millions and billions. We don't see big numbers a lot of times, except it used to be. When they first invented numbers, they didn't go very high, like whatever, you could count on your hands, right? But then they had to have bigger numbers because things got bigger, and now we have a national debt in the trillions, which is a huge number. And so that's a natural number if you can count and get there eventually. It'll take you a long time to get to the trillions. Well, natural numbers were our first type of numbers, first invented or discovered, however you want to think about it. But there was a problem with natural numbers because sometimes people wanted to say, I don't have any sheep. So what do I say? I don't have a number for that. And that's when the idea, the concept of zero came along. Zero came along centuries after the rest of those numbers. But if you add on the idea of zero, I usually put a little slash through my Z's because they look like 2s. And so that's just what I do. And I do that with 7s, they don't look like 1s. You'll see me slashing things. If you take the natural numbers and you add 0 onto that, then you have the whole numbers. So, sometimes instead of the word numbers, we use the little number or pound sign. That means number. So sometimes you'll see me write that. I didn't this time, but I may sometime in the future. Whole numbers are all the counting numbers or all the natural numbers plus 0. It's just one number different. When you say, oh, number 5 is a natural number, it's also a whole number. Whole numbers include all the natural numbers, but they also include 0, which isn't one of the natural numbers, because people didn't start counting with 0. Why would you count sheep if you didn't have any, right? So 0 was added on later, and it's now makes up this new whole set of numbers called the whole numbers. And there's other numbers that we'll talk about later on in future videos, but for now, you know the kind of number that I'm talking about, like fractions and decimals and negative numbers and all that stuff. Those are all have different names too. But the big umbrella name, so remember there's other sets in here. I'll just draw some boxes to show you. Yeah, we would talk about a couple of other sets too. I'm not going to name those right now because we don't need them right now. We're just talking about whole numbers and natural numbers at this time. But the whole big umbrella, those are called the real numbers. Real numbers are everything that we mostly deal with. There's a whole bunch of different types of numbers out there. But if you put them all into one big set, you can fit most of them into the real numbers. So we have the natural numbers, which are the numbers that we count with. The whole numbers, which are the numbers that we count with plus 0. And then we have real numbers, which are all those things plus all the other stuff, fractions and decimals and negatives and all that stuff. So we have this whole big thing going on, and terminology is important. Vocabulary is just, math is just a language, and the vocabulary of that is really important. So we don't want to just say, oh, it's just a number. Well, there's specific numbers, and so it's good to know natural numbers, whole numbers, and real numbers are a good starting point. There's a nice little symbol for real numbers that you see, that shortcut way of writing real numbers. It's 2 lines with the R. It looks like an R, but it's got 2 lines. That means real numbers, and sometimes I use that symbol too, so it's good to know that. It's always nice to know. Mathematicians are really into saving themselves time when they can. Why do it a longer version when you can do a shorter version? So sometimes you see that we use some shortcuts there. Okay. So those are number types, vocabulary that I would like you to have, because I might say, remember this answer is going to be a whole number, and you would then know, oh, that means it's going to be a number that I count with, or 0. And those are the only choices when you're talking about a whole number, so it limits down, you know it's not going to be a fraction or a decimal or any of that other stuff. When you're writing numbers, what happened was, they had ones originally, and so they had, you know, okay, 1 through 9. That was 9 was the biggest ones in the ones place. The most you could do is 9. And after they had 9, well, if you added 1 more sheep, well, now we can't fit any more in that place, and so that spilled over and became 10. So what's the biggest 2-digit number that you could have? This is a single-digit number. This is the smallest 2-digit number. What's the biggest 2-digit number? It would be 99. Always the 9 is what we get to when we spill over to the next one. So what's the smallest 3-digit number? Well, it's always the 1 followed by zeros, and there's a pattern there. So the largest 3-digit number and the largest 4-digit number, they're always 9s. Because that's what happens. You get to 9 and you spill over into the next unit, the next period. The 1s spill over into the thousands spill over into the millions spill over into the billions into the trillions, and so forth. And so that's how the number system works for us. And this is after centuries of people improving it and making it better and changing the way it is. And now we have this system where it's called a place value system, because every place has a different value. So a 9, you can have the same number in a huge same digit repeated over and over and over, but each one of those digits has a different value. This is value of 9, 90, 900, 9,000, 90,000, and so forth. So a place value system, which is what the which is a Hindu-Arabic system, which is what we use. Place value system means we can have a limited number of symbols, but by putting them in different places, we have all these different values. So it's a really great way to do math, and it's a really nice system to use. So what I want you to be able to do for your practice sheet is to be able to label or identify the place value of different numbers in a number, which we practiced. I want you to be able to write numbers in expanded notation, which we saw, in standard notation, in written notation, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions about types of numbers, natural, whole numbers, or real numbers, and then just a couple of other things for you to think about in your worksheet. I think you have everything you need to do this worksheet. You can watch this video again, or you can ask help from your teacher when you come into class if you still have questions. Have a great day.